Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is Marc Staut. Marc, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
Yeah, good to be here again, Jon.
Marc is our Chief Innovation and Technology Officer, in addition to being one of our shareholders as well. And among other things, Marc, you specialize in innovation and technology. But I want to talk about technology specifically, though it is kind of hard to separate the two topics there. But as you look back over 2022, what were some of the biggest shifts you saw happening in firms as it pertains to technology?
Yeah, Jon, it's a great question and very timely. It was a really interesting year for a lot of firms as far as technology went. We kind of came into the year not knowing what some of those big focuses were going to be. And a lot of firms were kind of casting about, trying to update their vision, trying to really invest in innovation and look for the next big thing. And I think that over the year, we've seen a couple of those trends really start to develop a little bit. We're starting to see firms look at how they're going to apply some technologies that are right on the cusp. They're starting to test those out. They're starting to think about things a little bit differently, as well as really challenging what they're doing with some of the technologies that are out there. So I really think that answer comes in two parts, which I guess is a compound answer in boomer terms, right? So the first one that really comes to mind, I've seen a lot more firms focusing on their systems. And they're not just looking at a single system. For the first time in a long time, there's this massive attempt to look at systems holistically. And that's something we've been talking about for a long time. And I think a lot of firms have been looking to leverage APIs and automation and make systems work a little bit better. But now they're actually starting to go out into the market and say, okay, what is it that we need to do to put all of the pieces together and to really manage our business with a technology platform? Now, the largest of the firms that are out there are looking for more of an ERP, enterprise resource type of a system. And it's a little bit out of range of some of the firms that are a little bit smaller than they are. I mean, it takes a lot to get those things going, but there's still so many opportunities out there to think about all your systems in a way where they work together. They're feeding information bi-directionally back and forth. And it's not just one department that's looking for that information or those insights. They're really thinking about how do we manage the firm holistically. And that's just been a huge breakthrough that I think innovative firms are really looking towards. Now, I told you this is a bit of a compound sticky, as we like to say here. So the other thing that I think that is really happening is there are some emerging technologies that firms are starting to watch pretty closely. Things like the metaverse, which is getting a horrible name right now. I mean, if you look at any of the news that's out there, it's all doom and gloom. But that's just the trough of disillusionment, as the Gartner hype cycle would call it. I think there are a lot of opportunities for that technology to come around and make an impact. And we're starting to see very large firms, the big four, are making investments in the metaverse with the virtual property. But even downstream, we're starting to see firms like Prager Metis purchase some of that land in those areas. Now, whether that's the right purchase, whether it's timely or not, those are all still to be determined. But some of the underlying technologies that are there, specifically not artificial intelligence, augmented reality and virtual reality, and how they are coming to play. There's some really cool things that are happening where you can start to use the glasses or even the headsets and do virtual displays of your monitors. So I think of the Lenovo Think Reality glasses that you can have 3 virtual monitors in front of you and interact with them just like they were really there. That could be a game changer for a lot of people who have limited space, who don't move things around as well. Just think about it. At the end of the day, you pack up your goggles and take your 3 monitor setup home with you, and you're just as productive there. So Not quite ready for prime time yet. There's still some challenges there, but we're starting to see those breakthroughs. And I think that 2023 is going to hold even more of those. So it should be a really exciting time, both on the innovation and the technology front going forward.
That's great, Mark. As you think about kind of what you shared regarding 2022 and how firms kind of went into the year, maybe not fully clearly seeing exactly where they needed to focus from a tech perspective, but then started to realize that or kind of see that there's a lot of cross departmental, cross office collaboration needing to happen. So while one department may want certain information, they start having conversations with others and realize there's some shared desires there, or things of that sort. Why do you think kind of the end of 2022 here, we're starting to see a big surge of that type of need in firms?
Yeah, I think it's becoming apparent that we need to manage the firm as a firm, not specific departments. For a long time, we had different departments in the firm or different operational areas, and they would pick the tool that made the most sense. Well, now there's so much crossover in between those types of things. You really can't separate the HR systems from the finance systems from the technology systems anymore. So looking at those things more holistically is giving firms an advantage in that they're able to get a better sense of both the direction that their business is going, but also they're able to create a better experience for both their clients and their employees.
That's great. And so for 2023, right, if we want to give our firms a bit more focus than maybe they had coming into 2022, you mentioned metaverse, augmented reality, virtual reality. What are some, maybe one or two things firms can do at the beginning of 2023 to really get off on the right foot as it pertains to their technology?
Yeah, I think, again, looking for those systems that all interact with each other, drawing some hard lines and saying, hey, if this doesn't play nicely with anything else, then it really probably shouldn't be something that we're considering. How is this going to integrate in? That's one aspect of it. As for those emerging technologies, I kind of implied earlier that the news out there on the metaverse and augmented reality, it's in that trough of disillusionment. Read it with an open mind. Go in and look for some of those news articles. Don't buy into the hype. That hype builds things up too high, and then it breaks them down too low. This is something I really think that we don't want to fall asleep on. I was talking to another firm earlier, and I mentioned, I was like, this is kind of like when cryptocurrency, which nobody knew if it was really going to take hold or not, when you could buy a Bitcoin for $50 as opposed to $50,000. This is that moment where you're looking around, you're going, this sounds early and it may or may not pay off. But this is the time to be aware of that, educate yourself, and really start thinking about what your firm's plan is. If we end up with another bit of a dot-com rush as these platforms mature and stabilize, this would be something that you want to make sure that your firm is ready to take advantage of. So as always, education, and keep an eye on what's happening out there.
That's great advice, Mark. Well, that is all the time we have for this shortened episode of the Boomer Briefing podcast. But as always, thank you for being on. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed the conversation Mark and I just had, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. We like to rotate topics, but one common theme is that the topics we discuss, we believe, are critical to your firm's success. So please go ahead and subscribe. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, John.